All right, let's move on to number 5. Erock, what do you got with number 5?
Okay, number 5, it has been mentioned. In fact, I think I was overbearing in my mentioning it earlier, but my number 5 is Ark Nova, which is the aforementioned build a zoo or habitat game. This is much like I talked about Mosaic. This is in the Terraforming Mars school of games, where it's really about getting a tableau of cards going on that really feed off of each other as you go. I think this game is really cool. As was also mentioned differently, the main mechanism that's going on in this game is that you have 5 action cards, and they go in these slots in front of you. Just to recap real quick, Civilization New Dawn uses this system. So basically, you have 5 action cards, and they go in this track in front of you: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you can use any one of those cards on your turn to perform the action on it that you want to. But the farther down the line they are, the more powerful they are. So if I use the card in slot 5, I get basically 5 power worth of that card. And then it goes to the front of the line and everything slides down. I could use the one in slot 2 if I want to, but I'm only getting a 2 power out of that card. Then it goes to the front of the line and slide down. I really like the way this works, because a lot of the time it's very strategic and tactical at the same time, because strategically you're trying to build this whole like nature preserve with these animals and stuff going on, and so you have this strategy of where you're trying to go, but at the same time you can only have so many cards ever, and you don't have any control. Well, you don't have a lot of control over the cards that you get. It is a massive deck of cards that are all unique animals. So you kind of need these to feed off of each other to complement your strategy. But there's, like I said, there's very limited control over the cards that you actually draw. So it's both strategic and tactical as you're trying to make this big puzzle work and make your turn work with what's available to you, while also trying to figure out when to use these cards that are in this line. And I think it's fantastic. There's a lot of times that you don't need that card to go all the way to 5. Know what I'm saying? Like if I need to build a size 3 enclosure, I only need to be on a 3. If I let it go all the way to 5, then I'm basically wasting actions by doing that. So there's a very real efficiency game going on here as to when I pull off these moves and what sequence I pull them off at. So this is where the main strategy part of this goes, is trying to line up your actions. If I pull this at 4 now, it's going to drop to 1. That moves these up. How long do I need to wait for this card to make it to 5 where I really need it to pop off? What actions can I do in that time with the cards that are available that are efficiently doing things while also pushing the card I want to slot 5? I think this game is awesome. It is a bit long, as is my custom. And it is a bit random in that, like I said, you could just never see a certain type of... I'll give you for instance. There is a bear mechanism in this game, all right? And the bears really work off of each other well. But there's only like 10 bears out of this entire stack of cards. So if you go like full bear early, you could very well be disappointed by the rest of the game, never seeing another bear. And you could very well see them. I see Steven has one. I see John has one, but I never had them. I never got a chance to play that. So that can be very frustrating to people that haven't played this a few times or just are not very easygoing.
Very frustrating?
Very frustrating. So that there is that element there. Most people that I've played this with absolutely love it. They really get into it. But I have seen people bounce off this game because they just feel like, well, nothing I could do. I just didn't have any control. And it does feel like that until you really learn the systems and understand, like, it doesn't have to be that way. There are ways to pivot, and there are things to watch out for. You know what I'm saying? But if you play your first, second, third time, you might not be aware of that. And you're probably going to get schooled by somebody who's played a lot because they understand how this works. And they understand the scoring, which is a little weird too, the first time you play, because you basically you have these 2 markers that start on opposite sides of the board. And the game will last until somebody crosses them somewhere along the track. that's when the game ends. So it's really driven by the people playing the game and how fast you make those markers move. And then your score at the end is going to be how far apart are they after they pass each other. And it's really hard to maneuver that to the point where just getting them to pass is awesome. Like, great job. But you only have like one more turn, and your points are the difference. So you need to figure out ways to get bonus points at the end of the game that will separate them. And that's what makes the difference between winners and losers in this game. And I'd say it takes a long time, 7, 8, 10 games to really get a good feel of how to make that happen. But I had a great time playing this game every time. From the first time when I made mistakes to the last time when I felt like I understood what was going on. And I highly recommend it if you have the patience for it.
Didn't the expansion give you ways to dig for cards that you're looking
Yeah,
at?
it also added more. So it kind of balanced itself that way. And what I mean by, I feel like it kind of came back to the same spot because it loaded you up with more cards and then gave you ways to dig for cards, which makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Because it didn't make it easier. I just feel like they brought it back to where it was in the first place, which is where they wanted it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's a really good game, but if you play this for the first time and you have a really rough game of it, due to luck, you'll never want to play it again.
I've seen people bounce. Absolutely.
It can be oil and water for sure, but it is a very solid game. It's fun.
All right. Well, my number 5, we're going back to Luke Laurie because my number 5 is Whistle Mountain. So you mentioned this before. I think it was on the people's list as well. I like the idea that Luke Laurie seems to have latched onto, that, you know, there's a lot of worker placement games where you have to pull back your workers, and it just sort of feels like a wasted turn, you know, like lose a turn or whatever. But he always has some interesting thing you do when you pull your workers back. So in this game, you know, this is maybe the first game of his I played that did this, right? You have, is it 3 different types of workers, and they're different shapes. And you have to dock them on different spaces in the scaffold bridge thing you're building in order to do stuff on your turn. But then at some point you're going to pull them back. And when you do pull them back, it's going to trigger stuff that you've got on your board that, you know, you've set up just for you, these gears or something. I forgot what they're called. But so, you know, you're going to set yourself up for those turns. And then, you know, you'll find yourself actually potentially recalling early. You know, you'll recall early because you get those benefits. And then also it sort of puts you on the front foot, right? If you recall early, and then when other people recall, now you've got a blank board to sort of work with, you know, spaces to go. There's a lot of competition here. I mean, how many times have you played this game and built some scaffolding, and then somebody else puts a machine on top of your scaffolding that you just built that you want to put a machine on, you know? Like
that's why I built that.
It also has it has asymmetric powers, which I don't know. They felt balanced when I played them. Maybe I don't know. Maybe some were slightly better than others. I don't know. It didn't feel like any of them were game breaking in the difference. But yeah, you know, I like the puzzle of building the scaffolding, putting the machines down, you know, putting out your flying machines and pulling them back. You know, I just really like that style of game that Luke Laurie makes. So Whistle Mountain is my number 5. All right, John, what do you got for us at number 5?
My number 5 is a cheating game that I put on the list solely to annoy Steven. It's always worth it.
Nicely done, sir.
It is Libertalia, Winds of the Galecrest. And I agree with Steven. This wouldn't have been if this was just a retheme, this would have been on the list. I love the original Libertalia. I still have it. The cool pirate theme. I really love that. I wish they'd have kept it, but it is what it is. However, this game changes things that I didn't feel needed changed, and changed them for the better. There's mechanic, because what happens is everybody gets a randomized set of cards in their hand. You randomize them, and everyone gets the same cards. And every card has an ability, and you're just outplaying your opponents. When you play them, you get to activate their ability, and then you get to take loot from the treasure pile at the end of the round, and it goes in reverse, so it goes from smallest to largest for abilities, and then once those have all resolved, it goes from largest to smallest to getting loot. And a lot of the abilities affect loot and how that works, and you can kill other characters and stuff. So it's really, you guys, here's this unique set of cards that you all have. You have to use them the best you can and outthink your opponent. And this version of it, the Winds of the Galecrest, changes the tie-breaking system. It changes some of the card abilities. It adds an extra 10 cards. There's just tweaks that it made across the entire game, where if you asked me before this game came out, does this need tweaks? No, it's a great game. It doesn't need any tweaks. And then after I saw it, I'm like, every tweak in here was not only needed, but it was for the better. And it's a beautiful design of taking a game that's good and somehow making it better. I wouldn't have thought it would have been possible, but they absolutely did it. So if you play Libertalia, play the new version of it, the updated rules, Winds of Galecrest. It is a fantastic game.
Hey, and shout out to Lamaro Smith. I know some people didn't like the shift in theme to this fantastical anthropomorphic pirates or whatever they are, but I think he did an excellent job with the artwork. So
the art is fantastic. It's not my favorite theme, but the art does look great.
All right. Let's number 5. People's Choice. We're into the top 5 of the People's Choice. And I've already talked about it. It is Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition.
Go try it. Great game.
Good game.
All right, cool. So let's move into the top 4. Erock, do you want to tell us your number 4?
My number 4 is by far the newest game on my list. I played it the first time at Dice Tower Con this year, or I'm sorry, Dice Tower East, as it is now known this year. And it is a game about making alcohol. It is fantastic. This game is distilled. This game, I was excited to play it because I heard good things. But that's true for most games for me. I hear good things and I'm excited to play it. This game was awesome. I walked away going, that was awesome. Like, I had such a good time playing this game. Mm-hmm. I'm going to try to sum it up to you. There's a lot of little intricacies going on, but it's not a complicated game. So basically, there's 10 rounds in this game. Every round, you can make a drink. And by drink, it's abstracted out. I'm actually making a whole bunch of whatever it is and selling it or whatever. But I mean, and you can make, depending upon your mix, you can make anything from moonshine to vodka to gin to whiskeys to bourbons to all these different kinds of drinks that you can make. And there's a lot of different setups in the game itself. Depending upon which set of stuff you use will bring you completely different things to be able to make as far as it goes. And there's basically like 10 per game. The box has, I don't know, I'm going to say between 20 and 30 different kinds of alcohols, especially once you add the expansion in. And in each game, you play like 10 of them. So, the game that you're playing kind of sets up a different kind of a feel for the game itself. And some of them are kind of harder sets and some of them are easier sets. But at the end of the day, it's just these 10 different drinks. And the way it works is you buy these cards, right? So on your turn, there's the first phase of basically of the round is you go in clockwise order and you buy these cards. There's a basic market and there's an advanced market. And the basic market, you're only ever allowed to buy 2 per round from there because they're cheap. And that's awesome. But you can buy as many cards from the advanced market as you can afford, et cetera, et cetera. And then once you're done buying cards or can't afford them or anymore or whatever, you pass. And once everybody passes, then you get into the actual mixing phase. And so you put what you want to in the stack. It's called the wash. So I might be trying to make a bourbon. And to make a bourbon, I need very specific kinds of things that make sugars. So for bourbon, it might be grain-based alcohol. So I might have to put like different kinds of grain-based, like maybe 3 wheats or 2 rye and a wheat or something. As they're all grain-based, they'll all count. But the trick is it can only have that one kind of thing. If I end up with both a berry and a grain, I made vodka. No matter what, if I end up with more than one type of sugar, I made vodka. Okay. So you're trying to avoid that because vodka is kind of on the cheaper end of things. It's like one of the easiest things to make where you're generally trying to get down this line of this is really hard stuff to make. Like it might take 3 grains, etc., to make this really cool whiskey that I'm trying to make. All right. But here's the deal. So you put all this stuff in like all these different cards. which is going to be like the water, the alcohol, like the grains or the berries itself, like all the stuff. And you put it in a stack, and then you shuffle them up, and you take off the angel's cut and the devil's cut, which basically means you take the top card and the bottom card out of it, and then you flip them over and see what's left. And if you made your drink successfully, congratulations, you did it. So there's a bit of pressure luck in this game, because if I'm trying to make a whiskey that takes 3 grain alcohol or 3 grain sources for the sugars, do I only go with 3, or do I put 4 or 5 in there to make sure I get there? But putting 4 or 5 in there is very expensive, because all of this stuff you have to buy. So, and everything that does come out of the stack, you use it. So, you know what I'm saying? So I pull the top and pull the bottom. When I flip over the stack, it's all used. It's all been mixed together. So if I put 5 grains in there and don't pull any grains out, I just use 5 grains to make the drink that only really needed 3. So that probably cost me a significant amount of money, and I'm losing a lot of efficiency doing it that way. So there's the pressure luck in there. How much do I put in there to make sure I get out what I want? And the absolute worst case is you make moonshine. Moonshine means I pulled all the sugars out, but you still made moonshine. All right. So, but you get more money for moonshine than you do basically for anything else. And then there's this other aspect where like you can put the stuff in your cellar and age it. So like different whiskeys and things like that, you want them to age. So they have to go into special barrels, and they go into your cellar, and you can't sell them while they're aging. So now I don't have any money for the next round because I didn't sell anything this round because I'm aging this other one. There's a lot of little intricate things going on here. There are cards that you can put in your factory that will help you in different ways. There's different ingredients you can get. There's special bottles that you can put the things in. There's special casks that you can make your stuff in. But the game itself is just 10 rounds of I'm going to make a drink, and you can literally make one every round from the first round. And I think it's fantastic. The one knock that I've heard about this game that I don't necessarily agree with is that it's a little bit anticlimactic, because you get the best payout from the things that age the longest. But that means that the drink that I make on round 10, I'm not aging it. Like, it feels like you build the whole game up to round 10 and then make something and sell it real quick. You know what I'm saying? So I can see that, though I don't necessarily agree with it, because you're basically you're just playing within the confines of the game. Because if I played it right, in theory, I'm also selling 2 other things that I made 4-5 rounds ago that have now aged a ton, and I just made a buttload of points off of the thing I made this round and the 2 things that I'm selling from the past that have now aged and gained flavor. I think it's fantastic. It's number 4 on my Call to the New. This is the first time I've ranked it at all, and I expect it's going to be very high on my all-time list when we get around to doing that later. It's a lot of fun. I highly recommend Distilled.
This reminds me a little bit of a game that I played before called Viva Java, the coffee game, where
I haven't played that.
You work with other people to put beans in a bag to then try to draw them out to make the specific blends, right? You're basically teaming up.
That's basically the same thing. Yeah.
Round. So it's interesting. It's also interesting you say this is the newest game. This is probably the newest game that we will talk about on the list, but my number 11 was so new it's not even out yet. So
yeah, I didn't put it on there.
But can you guess what my number 11 is?
Kraftwagen?
No, because I actually made this list, I think, the day before the prototype of Kraftwagen arrived. So
interesting.
No, it's Galactic Cruise.
Oh, okay.
Fantastic game.
I would have put Kraftwagen on my list, but it's not technically out when I made this, so it's not fair.
Indeed. But it's Cult of the Nude, right?
It's too new.
Super new.
Yeah. All right. So my number 4, going back to Luke Laurie here, and that is with Cryo. So Cryo, a lot of the same things about Whistle Mountain. You have these workers that you place, and when you pull them back, you have this platform that your workers are these drones. They go back to your platform, and your platform you have powered up in different ways by collecting these things off the board and putting them in the slots. And then when you dock the slots, it does a bunch of stuff. So it's got that classic when I pull back, I get a bunch of stuff.
Classic for Luke Laurie.
Yeah, well, classic for me, right? Like, I just like it. But another thing that I like a lot is multi-use cards. And Cryo has multi-use cards. I think there's 4 uses for each card. There's like a tech thing that you can unlock, a special ability, or you can use it as a ship, or you can use it as an end-of-game scoring thing, or you can use it for resources. I think I got all that right. So, there's a lot of sort of competition for the spaces on the board. So there's a lot of player and activity there. But besides that interaction, there's also these caves. The theme is these factions were fighting when they came out of Cryo or whatever, and they crash land on a planet not in the right place. And now they're fighting to get their people who are in these pods on the surface underground in the caverns so that they can survive over the long night or whatever of this planet. So it's interesting. Again, just a lot of those same things I talked about with Whistle Mountain, right? But I like this one better, and it's probably because of the multi-use cards, but also I like the area control aspect of the underground caverns as well. I also like this theme a little better than Whistle Mountain. Whistle Mountain was a horrible theme, partially because me and a lot of other people overlooked Whistle Mountain because we just thought it was some next version of Whistle Stop, and those games have nothing to do with each other.
Yeah, and it is weird. You're just building like this erector set scaffolding. Like, I agree. I think Whistle Mountain's awesome, but it's weird. Like this weird scaffolding up in the middle. Like you just build higher and higher. There's no real like engineering sense to it.
Cryo makes a little more sense thematically because you have these drones and they're going to different crash sections of the ship to collect different things, and each area of the ship has different stuff thematically, and then you're trying to get these pods underground and you're sabotaging each other's pods and stuff like that. So thematically it works a little better, and then of course I like the space theme in general a little more anyway. So I got it real cheap from a virtual flea market. May have even still been in Shrink because I think this game just sort of came and went without a lot of fanfare. But I was like, oh well, it's Luke Laurie and it's space themed. Like, okay, I'll pay $20 for that or whatever. And I love the game. It's one of my favorite.
I'll buy that for $1.
Several years, yeah, exactly. So yeah, there you go. My number 4, Cryo. John, why don't you tell us about another DeVere game?
Well, we already talked. Its number 4 is Red Cathedral. We talked about it. Just a great midweight game. A lot of decisions that feed into each other and moving dice around a rondel to get resources that you spend later to build up the cathedral. But super fun game.
Yeah, I personally like White Castle a little bit better than Red Cathedral, but they were very close on my list.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't played either.
Oh man!
Oh, you need to try them. They're good.
You need to get on the DeVere train.
Mm-hmm.
I think the last DeVere game I played, other than Cities, is Bitoku.
Oh, I didn't play that one. That was them, huh?
That's very long and complicated. Yes.
Mm-hmm. You picked the 2 worst DeVere games out of all of them to play.
Good job.
Thank you.
All right. So People's Choice, number 4. I'm going to throw it out there, but I'm not going to talk about it because it's going to show up later. But it is It's a Wonderful World, which is a weird dystopian theme on a tableau building.
Jimmy Stewart's in that, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
Game. No. All right. So anyway, that's People's Choice number 4. We'll talk about it a little bit more later. So let's move on to our number 3s here. All right, Erock, what have you got at number 3?
All right. I'm going to kind of be quick with this one because, and you'll see why in a second. My number 3 is Dune Imperium. I love Dune Imperium. It is a great game. I really like the combination of semi-deck building with the board and the fight at the end of every round. I think this game is fantastic. The cards themselves have multi-use. The cards, one of the coolest things I think about this game is the cards themselves. On the top left of the card, it tells you where you're allowed to play on the board if you use that card. I think it's fantastic. That really builds into your deck building strategy as well, because there might be a card out there and you're like, wow, that ability's fantastic, but it only lets me play on one space. So, there's a whole lot of like good and bad. What's better here for me? I think the game's awesome. On the flip side, I sold everything I have because I got tired of their predatory practices and it just annoyed me. But I got to give the game credit. The game is fantastic. I really want to play the new version. New version being Dune Awakening. Nope, that's the MMO. Dune Uprising is the new version. I really want to play it. I'm not going to buy it because those guys really drive me crazy with the way that they just keep releasing stuff that.
Didn't they release a big box and then something extra on the side so that it no longer fit in the big box?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
If this was the first board game I played, I'd go back to video games.
That's I'm saying. I sold it all. I give them credit. The game is fantastic. Oh, you can see Benny in the background. That's awesome. But I think the game's awesome. I would play it at any time. Though I sold it to a buddy. I was like, well, I'm glad you're the one buying it because now I'll play it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll be happy to play it with you, but I'm done owning it. I just got tired of it. So, but anyway, play it if you get a chance. Like I said, I really want to play the new version. New version being one of the reasons why I'm mad at them. Yeah. Because, it's less than 5 years. Dune Imperium's on my list. Less than 5 years, and they released a new version, updated kind of like, this one kind of replaces. Like, not really, of course, because we want you to buy both of them and all the expansions for both of them. But really, this is a better version of the game, So again, I give them props. The game is fantastic. I'm just done owning any of it.
John and I played this game once, and I would be surprised if we ever played it again. And that's all I'll say about that.
Not everything's for everyone.
Yeah.
The only fantasy franchise with a main character named Paul. Steven, what's your number 3?
My number 3, and I gotta say, I'm a little surprised here. I used the ranking thing at Pub Meeple.
I was going to give him a shout out at the end. Yes, I also use Pub Meeple to do this also, because it is incredibly tedious to look at 141 games and try to rank them individually yourself. Go to Pub Meeple, man. You can rank anything on Pub Meeple. Pub Meeple is awesome.
Yeah, that's right. If you can put a list in there and rank anything. So my number 3 is Kohaku, which I think means goldfish in Japanese, and or maybe koi. Anyway, you're building a koi pond is what you're doing, and I have the nice acrylic version, which I think really pops on the table. But the cardboard version, you can't get the acrylic version anymore. The cardboard version is also very nice. The artwork is really nice. But this game, I play it with my kids. I've used it sort of as a gateway game to other people because it's kind of a simple puzzle. It's like every round you're going to draft a fish and a feature. And the fish is just going to have... most of them are 2 colors. Some are a single color. The single color ones give you an extra point. And there might be other little things on there like dragonflies or whatever, or baby fish. And you put those next to things, and those features tell you how to score the fish, right? So flowers want to have certain colors around them. Butterflies want to have certain colors in their row or column or whatever. Statues are just points. And then the frogs want to have the dragonflies around, and the I think it's little rocks or something, in a place for the little baby fish to hide, right? So you're just trying to puzzle it out. Like, what can I put here to get the most points? And you're drafting these off the board, right? And so sometimes a fish will come out and you're like, ooh, I really need that color fish. Someone takes it for you. You're like, there. But, for the most part, it's a sort of solitaire puzzle. This is one of the few games I actually streamed a live solo play of this game on the channel, right? This is one of the few games I've actually played solo. It's fun. It's just a nice sort of, it's weird because it is sort of a brain burny puzzle, but it's also sort of a relaxing puzzle at the same time, because you're just sort of doing your own thing and trying to figure out your own thing. And then at the end, you've just built this pretty koi pond, right? Because it's, it's just a nice looking game in my opinion. So anyway, Kohaku, I think it goes up to 4 players is all. and like I said, the cartridge version's inexpensive. So I would say check it out if that sounds interesting to you. All right, John, what have you got for us? Number 3.
My number 3, I think I can make a solid argument for being one of the best board games ever made. And that game is Cascadia. It just plays so well. All you do on your turn is you draft a combination of a tile and an animal. You put the tile somewhere to expand your geographic region, and you put the animal on a tile that can go into. The entire game, I just told you how to play. At the end, you score it, and you see how many points you get. But this game is just so fantastic. It's so easy to teach. It's so simple to play, but it feels like very meaty decisions. What are you building up? What points are you going for? What's available? Do you want to spend one of your pine cones to wipe it and get a new set of animals out and hope that what you want comes up? And you're really just putting bears in forests and stuff like that. But the scoring is really what makes it fantastic. And what's really neat about the game is they come with several different cards. So your foxes are going to score different from game to game. Your birds are going to score different from game to game. And it's going to be different combinations of it. So you might have the third fox scoring card with the first bird scoring card and the fourth bear scoring card. And so every game you play feels completely different, completely variable. You're using the same basic building blocks for this game, but every game of it feels completely different. And it's just a very fun, fantastic game. Family weight, but it's still got enough decision to make it interesting. Anybody can play it. You can teach it to anybody. I've never had this game fall flat ever. And because of how good it is and its wide appeal, I think those two things combined might make this one of the best board games ever made.
I can't argue too hard with you. This game's awesome, really. This is number 15 on my list. I think it's I agree with you. It's been a hit with everybody I've ever played it with. Everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing I will say is that some of these scoring cards are a little complicated for
that's true
gamers. But so I find myself having to explain some of the scoring cards repeatedly during a session sometimes. But that's a minor. It's
thing. Minor. Plus, there's so much going on as far as options. You could totally ignore the one you don't understand and still play the hell out of this game. Really.
Well, it also has diagrams too. It'll show you this bird does not want to be next to other birds. And you're right. There's still times where you're just like, I don't exactly know what they were going for here. But for the most part, it works. And there's a landmarks expansion, which we bought, but we don't play with the landmarks because I don't like that part. But what it did come with is a bunch of extra scoring cards. So now my deck of cards looks like a playing card deck, basically, of all these different options. And it never feels like the same game twice. You're always trying something different, doing a different kind of animal, scores a different way than you used to, and just fantastic.
Yeah, I could take or leave the landmarks. I feel like it made it kind of significantly more complicated.
Yeah, it's also a little luck-based too. You get your tile down. And
it's a good thing. It's a bad thing depending on who you are. I don't think but I like that it had another player and the extra scoring cards.
I got it for the extra player, but it's just too much stuff on the table. In fact, I even already had some variant, I think, that reduced the choices, like the decisions, but there was just too much.
But the expansion, I think, is the best expansion of all time. Because it gives you more of what you want scoring cards. It gives you an extra player that's great. It gives you an optional landmark you can add into it. And it all fits in the base box.
And there are probably people that will swear by landmarks and say, I wouldn't play it without. And, that's fine. Good for you. You know what I'm saying? Probably people that love that. And, if I played this game 40, 50 times, maybe I'd be one of those people. But just the lifestyle that we live, nothing gets played that much. So I don't feel it's needed.
I don't think you should buy landmarks unless you need the extra player. So there you go.
But it's one of these games I would recommend to any board gamer to have in their collection. Serious gamer, family
it's awesome.
weight, anybody I've ever talked to, I would recommend that they buy this game.
If we were ranking games based on how much other people like them, this would be in my top 5 for sure.
Oh, easily.
And that's no cut on the game because, like I said, it's 15 on my list. I think it's great.
Well, it is not the people's choice, number 3. The people's choice, number 3, is Endless Winter Paleo-Americans.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's definitely on my list.
We might talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that one a little bit later. But I also enjoy that game. All right, so let's move on to number 2 then, shall we? Erock, would you like to tell us about your number 2?
Absolutely. So my number 2 is Hadrian's Wall. Hadrian's Wall is probably the most complicated roll and write that you'll ever play. Some people might argue that Twilight Inscription is more complicated, but it's actually just bigger. Mm-hmm. Hadrian's Wall, probably the most complicated roll and write that you'll play until somebody comes out with one more complicated just to prove a point, of course. I love Hadrian's Wall. This is number 2 on my list. Next year, it's probably going to be number 1 because I believe my number 1 will fall off next year. But I think it's fantastic. This game is, I'm going to kind of date myself with this, but it's Plinko the game. And what I mean by that is everything turns into something else, which gives you more options to do more things. There are exactly 6 rounds in this game. I challenge you to play with a group under 2 hours. 6 rounds played simultaneously. And I challenge you to finish under 2 hours because so much happens. Like every turn, basically what happens is you flip up a card in the middle of the table. Everybody starts with those resources. And it's a fairly good amount, 6, 7 things that you get, right? Yeah. And then you flip over your own card out of your own stack. Actually, technically, you flip over 2 cards out of your own stack. Your deck of cards has 12 cards in them. You will see the same 12 cards every game because it lasts 6 rounds and you flip 2 of them every round. And your choice is, which one of these do I want for the resources and which one of these am I going to score at the end of the game? And that's the decision you make every round. And the one that you choose for resources, you get those resources. The one you choose to score, you tuck it up under your board at the top. At the end of the game, you're going to score that. You know exactly what 6 things you're going to, well, you know exactly the 12 things that are possible to score. So, and as you go, you're setting yourself up to score very specific 6 things, which you know, I'm going to score 6 things at the end of this game. And then, like I said, everybody starts with this pile of resources that you get at the beginning of your turn, and you just start using them. And you can use them for all kinds. You have 2 sheets of paper, 2 sheets of big, they're not 8 by 10s or whatever, but they're pretty big sheets of paper. And like one side is basically your infrastructure. It's like building up your walls, building up in some fairly Roman terms because it's loosely based on, actual Hadrian's Wall. The idea is that everybody in the game is building their own section of Hadrian's Wall, which was the wall that the Romans built that went the whole way across England and split the country in half. So the point is, I'm building my section of the wall, you're building your section of the wall, etc. And so the one paper is basically all that. I can build the wall, I can build the fort, I can build the city, I can send guys out to get resources like outside of the walls. And then the other paper is all your like social stuff. So I have like my gladiators and stuff are in there. My priests and stuff are in there. My trading is in there. Like all these different things are over there. And literally this game is, when I place this to build the wall, it gives me this. Now this I can use to go over here and improve my trade, which then gives me this other resource, which then I can come back over here and send a guy out to get resources. That gives me this. Now I can go over here and use that over here. So this is what I'm saying. Like, it is this giant chain of things that you do every turn with all these resources.
And all you're doing is Xing out spaces on a grid.
That's all you're doing. Xing out spaces on all these different grids. And I think it's fantastic. The way these things interplay with each other, they're giving you more stuff. And it's really about maximizing. How do I get the most out of this while also keeping in mind I'm scoring 6 very specific things at the end of this game?
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic. I love this. This is easily my favorite roll and write. I will give one piece of advice. When I play this, I make people play with pens because there's way too much that you could backtrack in this game and lose your place for sure. Know what I'm saying? So when I play, we play with pens. When you make a move, you mark it, and that's the move you made. Move on. Just move on. It's already going to take you an hour and a half, 2 hours, 2.5 hours to play a 6-round game. Make your decision, do the best you can, and move on.
It's a good game. It's the only game that I think you can play for the first time for 2 hours and be unable to teach it right afterwards.
Right?
It's just, can you teach me that game? No, I can't. I'm not capable. It is
Right.
a very interesting. It is the most interesting flip and right, I think, by far.
Yeah, it's super cool. And, much like a lot of the games on my list, you can play it on Board Game Arena, which really helps.
Mm-hmm. But how do you get the pen off of your monitor at the end?
I think they did something really cool in this. On the Board Game Arena version, you can go back one step. So that's nice. I don't know how to implement that in real life. You know what I'm saying? I think that's fair, that you can go back one step. The last thing I did, I can take that back and do something else. Also, but I've done 8 things already. I'm not going all the way back.
It's a lot easier to misclick than, miss X.
Yeah, then mark something with your pen.
Yeah.
Like, oh, my bad. You marked it.
All right. Well, my number 2 was the People's Choice number 9. So it is now time to talk about villagers.
Nice.
Villagers, the theme is you are building a village, and you're going to be drafting these villagers off the board in your hand, and you need to be able to feed them. Like there's these food icons, which basically thematically you need to be able to feed them, which allows you to get more cards. And then there's the building icons, which allowed you to actually build more houses to put the people down actually in your village, right? But what you're ultimately trying to do is you're trying to build chains of these villagers. Some of them, they have like a special ability and they're one-off and they're not part of a chain. And those ones are cool. But the way that you score a lot of points in the game are the ones that have these chains, right? If you've built one of these, now you can, if you've recruited one of these villagers, now you can recruit another one of these, another one of these. And some of them, I think, go 4 deep and score a ton of points. And you can actually play ones that you don't have the linking thing for if you pay the bank or if somebody else has one. Like, because there's the things that you have, like, there has to be a carpenter for you to be able to play, I don't know, whatever this worker is, and like
furniture maker or something.
If somebody has already played one of those, you pay them instead of the bank. So there's this ability to get cards out, but ultimately, you can put some of those linking cards down that other people need, so you can get points that way. You can get these cards out early because there's actually 2 scoring rounds. So if you get one out earlier, some of them give you benefits earlier versus later. But I like the sort of puzzle. The game can be a little bit frustrating, as you can be sitting on the jeweler or whatever and just never get that linking card. There's a few mitigating things, like there's some special cards that replace links that you need or whatever. I just like the puzzle of trying to build out these chains and score a bunch of points. And everybody I've ever played this game with has enjoyed it. So yeah, that's why it's my number 2, Villagers.
It's a really cool game. I'm probably the only one that's ever described it this way, but I feel like it's Food Chain Magnate, but just the card part.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I see where you're going.
That's okay, because the board's ugly in that game.
Indeed.
All right, John, it is now time to talk about your number 2.
Endless Winter Paleo Americans. This is another game. You get 9 actions for the entire game, and you try to do the most you can with those actions. But this is a 9-action sandbox. There are 2 different tracks that you can worry about. There is the environs area where you're going out and literally putting down houses onto areas and trying to fight for area control. There's a spot that's just pure bonuses that you're building onto. And on the obelisk section, you can get those bonuses, and then you also get points for building obelisk higher. So basically, there's just this massive grab of there's 4 different action you can take, and each action has its own sub actions that you can take within it. So you just take your worker, you pick one of the 4, you do all the actions within it, and that's your turn. Very simple, very straightforward. But it's kind of like do whatever you want with it. You can collect animals. You can then eat the animals to get food and tools, or you can save them for the end of the game where it's set collection. It's really a truly sandbox game where you can kind of just do whatever you feel like, and whoever gets the most points wins. And then at the end of every age, round, whatever you want to call it, you have a phase where you go through and everybody kind of fights for position, and you redo the turn order, and you do all this different stuff during the eclipse phase. So it's just a fantastic game. That's a really neat theme, and then it's just a sandbox you can play in. What do I want to do? How do I want to do it? And what's the best possible way to score at the end of the game? So just a fantastic little sandbox game.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, you can focus on some little part, right? You know, like when we played this, I focused on hunting. Maybe I ignored some of the other stuff a little too much, but yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I feel like I feel like we played the game and then I couldn't teach the game because it's a sandbox, so I just didn't do some parts of it, right? Yeah. So if you asked me to explain those, I'd be like, I don't know, but
yeah. Well, everybody gets a chief power, and it gives you one of the 4 actions is going to be stronger because of that chief. So it gives you a little guidepost if you want to use that. You can still do your own thing. You know, there's different cards that you can get to put in your deck. It's a little bit of a deck builder. It's really one of those games where there's just like 50 different things going on, but it's not overwhelming. You can kind of pick and choose what you want to focus on and then ignore everything else. And it's also, it all just kind of gels together where you're like, you know what? I want to go hunting. I'm going to eat a few of them to get me some food, and I'm going to use that to put out tents, and then I'm going to move those tents around to get the area control. You can just do that for the entire game, and you don't have to worry about any of the other stuff. You're just picking your path to victory.
Yeah, it's not overwhelming unless you just look at it laid out on a table.
It's a table hog. That is 100% a table hog.
Yeah, and there are a million things to do, but like you said, you don't need to know or do all of those things. So that's nice.
Yeah.
You can find your little groove. You can say, I really like doing this thing, and then do that thing.
Then run it till the wheels fall off.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the people's choice number 2 is Cascadia, which we just talked about. Very popular game. Not surprised to see.
If you don't have it, buy it.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So we are moving into number 1 territory now. So basically, forget all the whole rest of the list. This is all that matters. Number 1s, right?
This is it. All the enchiladas.
All right, Erock, you said it's going to drop off after this year, I guess. Why don't you tell us?
I think so. Yeah, it's been a couple months since I made the list, but I think I remember it's fallen off. And ironically, it's by the same company that I was very mean to a few weeks ago. But my number 1 is Clank Legacy Acquisitions Incorporated. This game, this is fantastic. First of all, Clank is awesome. It surprises me every time. Like, we play Clank, I have a great time. And then it goes on the shelf. And then, because, we have 500 other games, and it's 6 months, a year until we get Clank back out. And every time I get Clank back out, I'm like, God, that was so much fun. Clank is such a fun game. And the Legacy Acquisitions Incorporated version, I had one of the best times of my life playing a campaign game was this. Now, you know how it goes with games, and especially campaign games. The people that you're playing with make a battle out of it. You know what I'm saying? So Tiff and I, we played with our gamer couple friends that we played like everything with. It was just fantastic. It was one of the best long campaign experiences I've ever played, ever. It is, I've called it this before, and I will stand by it. It is the most legacy game I've ever played. You are constantly stickering, opening stuff up, getting new stuff, putting stuff on the board. Check this out. Read this thing. Now this is going to happen. Now everybody gets to do this. Now we're going to read this other thing. Now pull this other thing. Open up this box. What's in that? Everybody gets a new thing. Like, this is constant throughout this game. It's also probably why it kind of pushed it down a little bit for Tiff, because I think it was almost too much stuff constantly going on. But for me, it was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. Like I'm saying, it was just constant new stuff happening. Read this thing. Here's the thing. Want a sticker? Put that down on the board somewhere. Here, have this new piece you've never seen before. Look at this. Now read a thing. To me, it was awesome. It was just whole adventure. Like, not only was it the most legacy game ever because of constantly stickering and getting new stuff and all that, but it just felt like a constant evolution of the game. As you play, like, it just felt like you're progressing. This whole idea, this whole game, this whole world was just moving forward at the pace that you were moving through this game. I absolutely loved it. And like I said, just Clank, that system, is so much fun. I've never not had fun playing Clank. I've gotten destroyed playing Clank. I have gotten burnt up below the line and not actually scored anything playing Clank and still had a great time. Clank is great. Acquisitions Incorporated, the legacy version, is fantastic. And I'm waiting for the second version of this. I backed this. I'm waiting for it. I doubt it's going to be, sequels are never as good as the first things, man. But my God, I love this. If it's half as good, it'll still be in my top 100 games, I thought it was awesome.
I believe I have seen friendships dissolved over this legacy game.
Yeah.
Over Clank?
Acquisitions Incorporated.
Really?
It's a mean game.
Hmm.
If you take it too seriously, there's going to be some consternation.
That's hilarious.
Fun little tidbit I had to throw in there. All right. My number one was the People's Choice, number 4. And that is It's a Wonderful World. So It's a Wonderful World is a game where you draft cards and you have to use those cards to either put the building into under construction, or you discard the card to get the resources to put on a building that's under construction to try to finish it. And you want to finish buildings because buildings that are finished get moved over to your Empire card where they generate resources. And the resources actually generate in order, which could be handy because it goes like black, which is like military, and then gray is industrial, right? And so if you do the generation of the black cubes and you get those and you can use that to finish a building that is going to generate industrial, well, that's great because industrial is next. So, it just sort of goes in sequence like that. And then there's like science and commerce and how many of them are there? There's yellow, green, blue,
exploration.
Blue, yeah. So there's a lot of different ones. And then there are these red sort of wild cubes, which is sort of like a extra thing you get if you had to basically discard a building or something, or you have some cubes you can't use, they go into your Empire and they can get turned into this sort of wild thing. But it's interesting because as you go down and generate, also being the person that generated the most of any specific thing also gives you a bonus. Mm-hmm. So you get like these financier tokens or general tokens. But ultimately, some of these things that you build also, they combo off each other and how they're going to score at the end of the game. And this is one of those games where you play the first round and you're like, that's it? How am I going to get anything done? I barely got anything done in this first round. There's only 4 rounds. Like, I'm not going to be able to do anything. And then by the 4th round, you're like, oh, I'm going to play this, and that's going to give me the resources to do this. I'm going to build this, and then that generates here, and I'm going to do this and that. And then, you've got all these cards built and all these points, built up. And so it really snowballs, and it really snowballs fast. And you think, 4 rounds is going to be enough. And it turns out to be, like a 5th round would be too many, Anyway, so that's why I really like the game. It has that multi-use card aspect. Do I want this card for the resources, or do I want to try to build this building? Or if you're John, do I just want to deny Steven getting this building, so I'll use it for its resources?
Nothing better than stealing things from Steven. There's just not.
The old hate draft. Very nice.
This game is more prone to hate draft than a lot of others because it's very obvious what somebody is doing to try to score.
Taking something Steven wants and building my wonder with it is just chef's kiss.
Yeah, plus it's not just a hate draft because you still get a cube out of it.
Exactly.
Right. You're sitting there and you're like, I absolutely need a blue cube this turn so I can finish this thing and I can get it, moved over to my Empire side. And you're like, which one of these cards has a blue that it gives me? Oh, the commerce card. John's collecting commerce. I'll use that one.
Exactly.
Steven says it as if he doesn't do the same thing back to me. This isn't a one-sided abusive relationship here. It is mutually assured destruction.
Yeah, but you're better at it, so it seems worse.
Right? When you're on the receiving end, it's always worse.
Yeah, that's true.
This is an awesome game. I agree with you. It's fantastic. It's weird to me because the theme is both incredibly there and also not important at all.
Oh, yeah.
If you strip the theme off, I wouldn't miss it.
Yeah.
Right? You're still playing the same game. You're still playing, put these cubes on cards to make more cubes to make more cards. But the theme is absolutely there.
You can almost
if
look
you're
at it
looking
and see
for it,
the prototype version of this game. Like you're just like it doesn't matter.
This is another game that has an expansion that adds more players and a ton of cards and very little in the way of gameplay other than that. There's the corruption, piece.
agreed.
But so I think that's an excellent expansion and it's really easy to teach with. So I always just include that. It does make it a little fiddly because every round when you have to construct the deck, you have to pull from two different piles. But that's not.
And it ramps up the scoring considerably, I think.
Does it? Yeah, I guess probably it does.
I feel like it
there's
does.
some
I
really
feel like
big projects
like
in there.
combos and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I played this at Dice Tower East, and it had been a while since I played, and I got stomped because I kind of lost track of how powerful some of that expansion scoring is.
Oh, yeah.
And if you let that stuff fall to the people and they just get like 5 of the same like double scoring stuff, like they just run away with it. So I think it does like ramp up the scoring a bit, but I agree with you. It's not anywhere near complicated. It's just more of the same stuff. And by the way, you can also double score things. That's all.
If you missed 7 Wonders, give this a try.
Oh yeah. And there's also 2 like legacy expansions for it that you can play if you want to.
Yeah.
I haven't played either of those.
I actually have one and never played it. So
yeah, I have one as well and probably will never get around to it, but oh well. All right.
Great game though.
Yeah. So let me paint a little picture for you. The People's Choice number 3 was Endless Winter, which was John's number 2. The People's Choice number 2 was Cascadia, which was John's number 3. So John, you are the voice of the people. Bring us home because you crossed over with the people at number 1. What is it?
I'm just an average guy. I speak with the people, for the people, of the people. When making this list, as Erock said, he had 817 games on his list. And it's really hard to jockey for position on that, who gets what. However, for me, number 1 wasn't even close. It was like, here's my number 1. All right, now let's go make the rest of the list. And that's because this game is one of the most fantastic games that, as Erock said, completely took me by surprise. And that's Thunder Road Vendetta. You sit down, because I played Terra Below, and that's what I thought this game was going to be. You're just driving cars around a track. It's going to be a dumb dice chucker, and that's it. That's all it's going to be, whatever. Sit down and play it. Just absolutely blew me away. It is so much fun. It's more fun than it has any right to be. And if you were to try to break it down and distill it, you can't put it into words. It's completely ineffable. It's just fun. And what you're doing is on your turn, all you're doing is you're moving around, and then you're activating your command board on one of your 3 cars for that round. And at the end, when everyone's moved all their cars, you start a new round, and you go until either one person's died, then it's a madcap race for the finish line, or until the last person standing and they win by default because everybody else is dead. And just that alone should get you interested in this game because it's such a cool concept for how to end a board game. But you're just literally driving around this board, avoiding obstacles, jumping off of ramps, catching on fire, driving into other players, slamming into each other, running off the board, running into walls and exploding, and that's all it is. It's Twisted Metal meets Mad Max in one crazy race with a bunch of stuff's going on. And as we said, you can get the base game and you can get every ounce of this game that's fun. You will not feel sad that you're missing out on the extra stuff. But if you like the game very much, there's so many extra things you can get for this game. You can get a 5th player that's literally a giant big rig truck that drives with 3 different segments as one truck. You can be 5 motorcycles that just run around and weave in and out of traffic. There's cards that's literally straight out of Twisted Metal. It's character abilities, and you pass them all out and everybody gets one. There's upgrades to your car. There's new maps. There's new hazard tiles. There's new special abilities. It's one of those games where the base game is amazing, but there's so much different things that you will never get bored of it. They just released a new one, which is literally a arena fight. You're doing a demolition derby in the middle of just a big circle of other cars. And it's on its way to, it's going to probably be here in like 2 or 3 months, depending on how the boat goes. But I can't wait to try that one out. So it's just one of those things that every person who sit down and try it, they go, I don't know about this. And at the end of it, they're just like, that was so much fun. I can't wait to play it again. It just has this quality about it that just is a blast to play. And I cannot wait to the next time I get to play it.
like several of us, I'm sure I have a couple hundred board games, and I play a bunch of these games with my kids, right? And how do I know if my kids really like the game? Because you always ask them, what'd you think of that game? It was good.
It's fine.
Fine. It was good. Whatever. So how do I judge if a game is really good? It'll be the weekend or whatever. I'll say, let's all play a game together. What game do you want to play? And multiple times they've said Thunder Road, right? So these are a couple of 10-year-old kids, and we play it, and a lot of choices out here, but this is what they want to play, right? Let's destroy all of Daddy's cars.
It's for everybody. If someone's like, I'm new to the hobby, what 2 board games should I buy? Get Cascadia and Thunder Road, and you'll have a blast.
They're so similar.
Yeah, they cover all your bases, blowing up cars and not blowing up cars. It's got you covered.
It's so cinematic. It's ridiculous how cinematic it is. You'll, at some point in a game, just realize how cinematic this particular moment of this particular game that I'm in is. Like, I can absolutely remember one person's like fast buggy, like trucking it towards the finish line, and the 3 choppers trying to chase it down. 3 different people's choppers chasing that buggy down, trying to blow it up. And it's so fun. I agree. It's incredibly fun.
Yeah. You can have somebody go through 2 hazards. The first one catches them on fire. The second turns out to be a ramp. They launch themselves in the air, land on a car, start a massive pileup with 5 different collisions. A car ends up exploding on the side of the road, and the first car is still on fire. It just, like you said, it paints a picture in your mind. You remember those moments of that happening. It's just fun.
Yeah. Good choice, people.
Yeah, good choice, John, voice of the people. All right, well, there you go. That is top 25 People's Choice.
2 hours worth of games for you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that was an hour and a half of you talking, buddy.
I know. I am aware of that. You guys are talking. I'm like, you guys take too long. And then I realize that I'm talking forever. Yes.
When you describe that prog game, I'm just like, does this game ever end? I don't know.
Well, we'll be back, next summer-ish time for Call to the New, where some of these games are going to drop off because they're going to get aged out, but there'll be plenty of new ones, I'm sure. If you're interested in these kind of videos, feel free to subscribe to our channel. Like, share, subscribe. We do appreciate that, and that does help us out. But anyway, we are Just Got Played. I'm Steven. That's Erock. That's John. And thanks for joining us.
Bye. Have a beautiful time.
Have a beautiful time.